to Mindshock True Crime. This is your host, Bruce McGuire, and thanks for joining us for the Maura Murray series. Here in 2024, this is the live Q&A part 2, taking any and all questions while going over some potentially new and mind-shocking information. And this will all hopefully lead to more of the puzzle pieces being put together. So that, of course, is the goal. Awareness is what gets missing persons cases, cold cases solved. Awareness and, of course, logical analysis instead of blindly believing what's on the idiot box or blindly believing law enforcement statements that are constantly changing from people clearly too incompetent to solve the case. Otherwise, it'd be solved already. Again, I don't know why some goofs find these points controversial, find basic logic controversial. Kind of strange. But as always, if you want to help support the Mindshock podcast, help logic and reason return to a world where it is quickly going extinct, to help get all these cold cases and missing persons cases solved, as well as wrongful convictions exposed, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. You can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel that way. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcaster requests. You could also be a guest on the podcast depending on your tier. Okay, so let's take an opening round of questions, and then I will go into some potentially new and mind-shocking information, but first we got a birthday in the house. Sarah Catherine, happy birthday. Was it a mind-shocking one? Justin Johnson in the house. Jess Palmer, Boggin, Pinto Sack, Mr. Pickles in here as well. Mr. Pickles saying, is it true Billy refuses to take a poly? I believe so, otherwise he would have taken it already, right? If you haven't checked out the extensive multi-hour Billy Roush Jumbo podcast on Mindshock, check that out. We went over pretty much all available information on Billy Roush. Pinto Sack says, you think the key is what happened at the dorm party at Sarah's? Something happened there. Yeah, this is tough. Because I'm not sure something happened there. I'm not sure there wasn't another party at another location and something happened there. All I know is that it seems very strange and nobody really wants to talk. So, yeah, I mean, that doesn't mean something didn't happen at Sarah's party. It means they don't want to talk about that party or any other potential party. I don't know if everybody's up to date on the Maura Murray series on Mindshock, the longest running series here. I went over a plethora of information on the events leading up to the alleged accident scene, the staged accident scene. I mean, that still triggers a lot of goofs that they think the accident scene just couldn't have been staged for whatever reason. Even though, obviously, countless missing persons cases, a vehicle is staged. I mean, this is like True Crime 101, but if you go on the sham subreddits, which is pretty much all of them, I mean, the goofs, they just can't grasp basic logic. And, yeah, I mean, again, this is an unsolved case for a reason. There appears to be a lot of online influence to try to downplay any kind of logical examination of any kind, as if to keep the case from being solved. Now, the reason why that is, many are free to speculate. Oh, Pinto Sack is a true mind shocker. Finished the whole series. Quite a few hours. I mean, there's still a number of there's still some info I haven't gone over. I might go over it tonight, but some of them there's just so many missing pieces, even in this other information. I would prefer to present it in a more complete fashion. Boggin says human trafficked or organ harvested. We actually went over both those theories pretty extensively, including some kind of supplement operation that Alden Olson was theorizing about regarding UMass, and he actually came up with some kind of receipts for some kind of black market activity. North Korean news update. Have you... that's an interesting name. North Korean news uploads. Have you any thoughts on media pressure podcast from Julie Murray? Yeah, I went over them on the previous live Q&A. I'll go over some more info on this one. I mean, there's definitely a controlling... I mean, it's like everybody wants to put out a podcast to control the narrative, for better or for worse. Again, I'm not claiming anything is true or untrue regarding anything. And Julie Murray may have the absolute best intentions, and she may not be deceiving in any way. But that doesn't mean that she's working with accurate information. I mean, there's many theories out there. Some people think that, let's say the theory that Maura Murray staged her disappearance and Julie knows. So, of course, she's not going to want to go down any avenues where it's not Maura at the scene. If it wasn't Maura at the scene, she's protecting her sister for whatever reason, and maybe she has a perfectly good reason to do so. I am not saying that she's not honorable in any way, or that any reasonable person wouldn't do what she's doing in her position, because obviously we don't have any of this information. So anybody might be doing what she's doing with a certain set of variables. Yes, North Korean news uploads. Julie Murray could be thinking she's operating in truth, but she doesn't know what she doesn't know. Yet she continues to discount ideas she doesn't like. I mean, everybody's got biases for a reason. She might be convinced, again, if she has police information that we don't have, that could cause her to really be set in stone about something that might not be true. Like, again, if Maura wasn't the driver. I mean, that's one of the theories that gets the most triggered goofs coming out of the woodwork. Like, if you just post even an innocent question about that on any of the sham subreddits, I mean, all the triggered brainless goofs will come out of the woodwork to attack anybody asking basic logical questions and continue to regurgitate clearly debunked hallucinations regarding the scene not being staged. Of course, I went over this again on a dedicated podcast, was Maura the driver. I mean, the majority of evidence points to no. Because we have the most objective parties, Rhonda Marsh, the dispatcher, taking down the information. So unless someone, I mean, even if somebody visited Rhonda Marsh after the fact, the transcript was already released at that point. Unlike, for example, Butch or Faith, if they got certain visits, they changed their story, and all the gullible goofs, all the clueless coincidence theorists and authority-worshipping cultist bootlickers, they just say, oh, well, she admitted she made a mistake because somebody who wasn't there told her what she really saw. I mean, just the level of goofery is just so off the charts in this case. Pinto Sack says the CI theory makes sense. It does make sense. It checks a lot of the boxes. Again, I'm not saying it's true or untrue, but it checks a lot more boxes than the so-called official narrative coincidence theory. If I had to lean, I would lean to, based on available information, I would lean that wasn't her at the vehicle. It was a man smoking a cigarette. It's very clearly, I mean, a man moves in a distinct fashion. How often is a cell phone charger mistaken for a cigarette with smoke? I mean, it's weird. I mean, people, it's as if, okay, if Faith Westman had never seen anybody smoke a cigarette at night, then okay. Then maybe. But if someone has seen people smoke at night, then I mean, again, has it ever been documented that someone has mistaken somebody charging a cell phone for smoking a cigarette? I would like to know that information. But again, the coincidence theorists hallucinate and pretend it just had to have been that because someone said something. Because a human said some words. That must mean let's throw all logic and reason out the window. Jess Palmer says someone on shrooms. Yeah, maybe. And then, of course, Butch Atwood, the least objective party who failed a poly. All these clueless goofs have just this blind faith in taking Butch's word as gospel. You don't see this level of goofery in any other case. In any other case, they're like, well, this was the last known person to see the individual. He failed a poly. I mean, maybe he's not telling the whole truth. Maybe he was intimidated, again, as Healy, who put in tons of hours on the case, unlike, like, boots on the ground on the case, unlike all the triggered goofs on the sham subreddits. Yeah, chargers don't look anything like a cigarette. I mean, maybe there's some kind of weird custom charger somewhere that does, but she had a standard charger, so. Yeah, Cosmic Shy, hello. And then, of course, you know, multiple independent accident reconstruction experts all concluded that the accident scene was staged. It clearly didn't hit a tree. The damage on the hood clearly looks like a tow hitch more than anything else. Again, maybe it was something else, but it looks like a tow hitch more than anything else, and that's what the League of Private Investigators determined, who put a lot of time into the case. They were connected with law enforcement, but not directly law enforcement officially investigating the case. Pinto Sack says, so if there was a guy there, what was he doing? Staging it, crashed it? Why would he hang around to smoke a cigarette? That's a good question. So there's a few different theories. Who said he was the driver? So if it was being towed and it came off the tow hitch, either due to, who knows, Bruce McKay, 001, whatever reason, if there was some kind of spin out, like they're going to stage, that's the other thing the clueless goof coincidence theorists can't comprehend. No one is alleging they were intending to stage it right there at the weathered barn corner where all the neighbors are. So obviously, according to this theory, they'd be taking it to, I don't know, Loon Mountain parking lot, the National Forest right there. And again, I don't know why these brain-dead goofs just can't grasp that not every plan in the world goes off perfectly, especially involving criminals. But even geniuses, even the smartest people in the world doing various experiments or whatever, everything doesn't always go according to plan. This isn't rocket science. But these goofs just can't grasp just even children's level basics. So if, for whatever reason, either the tow truck was maybe an old truck, the car came off the hitch. It's not like, unlike chargers being mistaken for cigarettes, cars have come off cheap old tow trucks. You can find cases of that happening. Not just happening, but even happening on a highway and causing an accident. So it's not like that's never happened, that's never been documented, unlike mistaking a female for a male figure walking around a vehicle late at night. I mean, why would none of the neighbors even come out to help a stranded female? Whereas if it was a male, obviously there's less of a likelihood neighbors are going to come out there for a male, just basic human instinct. And you can see, I mean, again, it's like people stopping to help a woman changing their tire, where, I mean, it's not that they never stop to help a guy, but it's much more rare. So yeah, or it could have been maybe 001. Somebody else could have possibly came to see what was up with the car, either involved in the staging or not. I mean, I don't know. If there's some kind of crossover with DEA U.S. Marshal activity, again, in this small hamlet in the middle of nowhere, apparently the coincidence theorists don't bat an eye that there's DEA and U.S. Marshal activity. I mean, There's human trafficking cited in the town minutes reports, but I mean, the coincidence there is just think that's all nothing. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find more clueless goofs regarding a true crime case than the Maura Murray case. Pinto Sack said there was that first call earlier about an accident. Yes, there was. The entire original narrative centered around an earlier, some kind of spin out. So maybe Maura was at that one again. I don't, unlike the clueless goofs, I don't claim anything is true and true. I just point out basic logic. But we have no way of knowing if that was her at the earlier one. Now, if there was a tow situation, yeah, it's really tough. It's really tough to figure out, and the way they tried to silence the earlier one by pretending it didn't even happen. I mean, there's multiple witnesses on the police scanners. John Smith actually pointed a lot of that out, and yeah, it's interesting how everyone wants to downplay the earlier accident. That could be the key to this whole thing. But I think UMass definitely offers a lot. So let's get into some of the potentially new information. So on the Maura Murray Mindshock subreddit, we have quite a few astute posters. So Wallaby, one of them, posted this, that he posted some screenshots here. Apparently, Butch Atwood had an ice house at French Pond. So when searching for Maura, he goes to his ice house at French Pond, or perhaps in that area. Did anyone ever ask him why? So I don't know if there's a source for this information. It says here, no idea who posted this. An investigator reached out to Forensic Archaeology Recovery to see if we would be interested in assisting to locate Maura Murray. Utilizing the info provided in the police report, which highlighted the bus driver's behavior, we chose to search in and around French Pond, where the bus driver had an ice house in the winter months. The scenario we moved forward to ground truth was that Maura was placed in the ice house and that the body found its way to the bottom of the pond. In 2010, FAR archaeologists and volunteers made an effort to systematically search the area around the pond and the pond itself. Working in co-op with the Maura family and local New Hampshire police, the perimeter of the pond was surveyed using probes with the help of the Quincy, Massachusetts police dive team. The entire pond was surveyed using side scan sonar. There were a series of anomalies, and that's where that cut off. Interesting. Huh. So that was a screenshot. I don't know what this is from. Wallaby did not specify here. So there were anomalies, but apparently somehow they determined that those anomalies were not her. Interesting. Interesting. Hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of bizarre. I don't remember anybody mentioning that Butch had an ice house there. And so he just randomly goes to search in his area. I have another theory. What if he just, what if he knew? Now, again, I don't claim anything is true or untrue. I'm going over many different theories, mutually exclusive theories. I am making no actual claims. I don't know why that's difficult for a lot of goofs to comprehend, so I have to explain this ad nauseum. Maybe one day, at least some of the goofs will get it. I'm assuming the ice house is that some kind of like a shack or something on a pond, maybe for ice fishing or something of that nature. I don't know. What is an ice house? Let's check that out. An ice house is a building used to store ice throughout the year. commonly used prior to the invention of the refrigerator. That's kind of weird. Like, how far? He has an ice house that's that far. I don't know. Maybe it's kind of like a storage shed he was using it as. I don't know if anybody's trying to say he was still using it as an ice house, but yeah. I don't know if that information has ever been put forward. I haven't heard that anywhere else. So that is curious. Now, here's another theory. Let's say Butch Atwood was a serial killer and he killed a lot of people, but he had nothing to do with what happened to Maura. And he knows, since now everybody's gonna suspect him of being the last one to have seen Maura, he goes and gets rid of whatever evidence he has at the ice house related to other cases, and it has nothing to do with Maura. How's that for a theory? Or if he's involved in other criminal activity, not killing people, but there might be something at the ice house, and he doesn't want them to find it because they think they're gonna suspect him, because if she really was at the scene and he was the last person to have seen her, he'd be prime suspect number one. So who knows? Perhaps if Butch had nothing to do with it, or it could, I guess it could also be coincidental. Coincidences could happen. If Cecil or someone else told him to go search French Pond, I remember I heard that. I don't know if that's just a rumor that he was asked to assist, and then of course other rumors are that he just went there without being asked. So who knows? Or they just asked for volunteers to help search, and that's just where he happened to go. So, a lot of different theories, a lot of different variables. Let's go over some more posts here. We have Wallaby commenting on the conversation on media pressure regarding French Pond and Butch Atwood. The whole thing regarding French Pond is weird. The reason why I wanted to search French Pond is because of the words of the last person who supposedly saw Maura. I like his phrasing there. And that would be Butch Atwood. Butch Atwood had stated numerous times that he got into his own private car that night and he searched for Maura and he went down different areas that I didn't believe that she would walk to. In his final words, he finally went to French Pond. I said to myself, why would you go looking for her down a dirt road in French Pond the opposite way where she was traveling? Terry O'Neill said. Well, I have a potential answer there too. What if he saw her walking in that direction, but for whatever reason he never shared that? Or she got picked up in a car and he saw that as well. Or, of course, she was never there. There is one point where you exchange some emails with the state police in New Hampshire, inviting them to join the search. They declined and said, let us know if you find anything. This is what Julie Murray said, or asking of Terry O'Neill, who says, that's correct. The first team that I was going to use was the Massachusetts State Police dive team. But you need an invitation from another state police unit, and they wouldn't invite them in. That's interesting. It's almost like they don't want to find out what happened to her. I mean, there's just roadblocks everywhere in this case by the police. Again, if there is some kind of upper agency involvement and they just wanted to shut this whole thing down for whatever reason, then this would all make sense. All these roadblocks would make sense. Then I was in contact with the Rhode Island State Police, hoping they had a better relationship. Same ones, Lieutenant Scarinza wouldn't let them in. I was thinking about it before I go. Who is the biggest and best dive team? Massachusetts, other than the Mass State Police, is the Quincy Police Department because they have the quarry, Terry O'Neill said. Julie Murray says, so the Quincy, Massachusetts Police dive team came up with state-of-the-art equipment, including underwater sonar, and found an unnatural object at the bottom of the pond, Julie Murray says. Terry O'Neill responds, I did, after circling the pond on a few occasions, identified a target. When they ID'd the target, they dropped a large orange flotation device over that target to anchor it down and took the coordinates. Once they did that, they relayed back to the command post that it's an unnatural object. It was a 3 by 5 foot object. It was down in the bottom, which they assumed was in the mud. So once they did that, they operated a small robot-type tool, which is like the Elvin out of the Woods hole, but a small division. but it was so murky down there that I couldn't see it. So the plan was that they were going to order some new equipment because they were all part of the Homeland Security and we're going to go up again in a few months and do the search again. So the night before, I got called by Lieutenant Gillen to go up for operations plan up at Quincy PD. But before the meeting started, he said to me, Terry, what's the chance that the New Hampshire Fish and Game dragged that pond after we left? I said a very good chance, because if there's a target there, they want to be the ones to recover, especially if it was a body. So we went back up again and they started their search for the size scanner. The target was gone. Where did the target go? So if that was a human body there for so many years, then dragging it would just break it to pieces. It would never be retrieved that way. Terry O'Neill said. Julie Mary responds, how would someone know the exact location? Terry O'Neill says, we were under surveillance. Before we went to search French Pond with the Quincy Police Department dive team, a liaison, attorney Carlos Smelcher, or now Carlos Myers, had good contact. So he changed his last name. Did he get married and take his wife's name? I mean, what's the deal there? Had good contact with the Attorney General's office to let them know and made an invitation for the state police to assist us or to be present while the pond was being searched, which of course they declined. However, when we got there, we noticed there were 2 game and fish pickup trucks. Game wardens were observing us at a meeting place. Once we went down to French Pond, they didn't show up. None of the police ever showed up. However, Lieutenant Gillen had a portable radio from Pedro PD. While I was standing next to him, I heard one game warden call the other game warden's call signs and asked what his 20 was. And his response was, I'm still hovering over French Pond, which means we were under surveillance from the tree line. And that suddenly knew where the target was. That's something, Terry O'Neill said. So this is kind of weird. So this could theoretically, if this is all true, this could theoretically point to even more conspiracy and law enforcement agency involvement. Yeah, I mean, this is, I mean, this really is, this might be the weirdest case ever. It really might. I mean, there's just endless rabbit holes that branch off into other endless rabbit holes. So, let's go to the new information regarding an individual known as Ben. So, this was posted also by Wallaby here. Here's some more info regarding Ben in the text below, who had close family connections to the Christmas tree farm near the weathered barn. This guy was arrested in late 2004 after Maura vanished for 2 sexual assaults against minors. It looks like his son was the owner of the farm at one point. I can't find him if he himself ever worked there. Some of the interesting things that stuck out to me in his background info was that the only vehicle listed for him was a 2001 Jeep Cherokee. Something else caught my eye as well. He lived on River Road at one point, and his neighbor was C. Aldridge, which has been mentioned in this case before, along with his ex-girlfriend, Jessica C., which we went over on the previous episode. This goes back to the early rumor of the party on River Road involving some of these people and Maura being at the party. You know, okay, what if this was a 2 birds, 1 pinto sack? I will get to the psychic that mentioned the name Ben. There were a minimum of 2 psychics who independently mentioned the name Ben way early on before any of these connections were ever made in the case. But Ben also is a pretty common name, so I don't know. If all the psychics mentioned Cecil, that would be something different, because Cecil's a more rare name. Ben's pretty common, although it's still interesting. It is interesting. So, what if this is a two birds, one stone situation? What if there's a connection between Jessica C and the mechanic at UMass who possibly had a connection to the dominoes that Maura called after hours, if there is some kind of drug situation, CI or not, whether Maura was a CI or not, regardless. If there's a connection between this group of people at UMass and this group of people at River Road, what if the plan was to stage the Saturn? Let's say it was involved in the Patrick Vassie hit and run. Let's say Maura loaned her car to somebody or not, whatever, however that played out. Maybe they took it without a permission. I mean, supposedly there was a key on the vehicle, on the tire, so anybody who could have known about it or not, some people just check to see if the keys are left on the exterior of the vehicle anywhere, because some people do that. And they just took her car without her knowledge, and if she is a CI and implicated in something, they threatened to blow the whistle on her if she revealed who took the car and hit Patrick Vassie. There's just a lot of coincidences going on within those few days. I mean, that's probably why the coincidence theorists love this case. They love just in this case, there's more things to dismiss as coincidence than any other case. That's probably why they love it. All the goofs on the sham subreddit. So, if this is all going on, and this group, she has a group of people, maybe she gets them to help her stage the Saturn in somebody's pickup. Maybe there's a mole in one of the groups, and they find out she's a CI. So maybe she went up there to go to that party, while also having the Saturn staged elsewhere, and someone blew the whistle on her being a CI, and people didn't like that. Or, again, we could take another theory where if she's not a CI, or even if she is, but nobody found out, they're still staging the Saturn, and maybe there's a drug situation at a party, or an innocent accident. Maybe there's an accident. Accidents at parties happen, alcohol poisoning or otherwise, or just falling and breaking your neck. Again, a simple scan of all the deaths every day in the United States, it does happen. People panic and they get rid of her body because they think they'll be responsible. Or they're just involved in all these other illegal operations. They just can't, for whatever reason, they don't want to deal with the police because they're involved in other illegal activity. So is that a possibility here? But it's hard to dismiss early rumors because in so many cases, early rumors turn out to be true. Now, I'm just going to recap real quick what we went over in the previous live Q&A regarding this oh my coincidence individual. Because if he's connected to Jessica C and these people as well, maybe this all makes sense. So, oh my coincidence was involved in the case early on. What was his intent? A list of oddities and notes. So this person, I don't know if this was Wallaby or somebody else. This account has since been deleted. I recently spoke to Julie Murray through email, and she told me. So there's an individual, we can call him ASC, who some believe was oh my coincidence. So she told me that ASC had threatened Fred Murray when Fred tried to talk to him. This contradicts everything Oh My was posting on topics about wanting to help the family and Fred. This makes no sense. She also made it aware that any tips on this guy should go to law enforcement, and that law enforcement has received tips on this individual before. This individual is now deceased. He was killed in a motorcycle accident in 2013. He was a top friend on Maura's MySpace page. Why? He would have had to have been added before 2013. Once again, was this page always a tribute page? Question mark. I don't know, has Julie ever addressed that? Was it ever originally Maura's own MySpace page at some point? If you don't believe me, go look at her MySpace page yourself. I had to block out the names. I found this part to be the most interesting, and I actually found it odd years ago. This individual created a new email on exactly February 9th, 2004, and then got a new phone number on exactly February 10th, 2004. The type of phone number he used was VoIP. I am not sure how common these types of numbers were back in 2004, but the background check on his number showed a warning next to it, saying that these types of numbers are usually involved in money and romance scams. Now, again, let's reiterate, I don't know if it has ever been definitively proven that ASC was indeed Oh My Coincidence, but I think John Smith said that he was. I don't know if he stated exactly how he knew that. According to Ken Mastrullo, an investigator who worked on the case, ASC was the recruiter of the barge-in dancers that came from Burlington, Vermont. I posted an article, but there's an old article that talks about the barge-ins starting an exotic dancer type thing, and that they were recruiting their dancers from Burlington, Vermont. Started posting on topics as Oh My in 2007 and 2008, accused many locals of having something to do with Maura's disappearance, including Claude Moulton. Later redacted the statement and blamed others, then went back to blaming Claude again. Claimed that Maura had a friend on Lime Kiln Road. How would he know this? Literally lived on the above road himself. Lime Kiln Road is where Cecil Smith headed after Maura's accident because there was a report of a suicidal teenager attempting to climb a power line. I believe this is what happened. There was a newspaper article on that as well. And again, supposedly there was an unusual amount of suicide call activity that particular night. Just another coincidence. Just this, yeah, it's pretty weird. Adam in the chat says, I spoke to Julie about a month ago, and she told me the info on the Christmas tree farm was actually sent to law enforcement. Okay. So, Oh My claimed that Maura saw something she should not have seen, or she possibly owed money to some people in the area. Threw out many theories, but it always seemed to involve these same people she crossed paths with. When talking to John Smith in an email years ago, he stated that he believed 100% that ASC was Oh My, but it is possible John's view has changed. So yeah, I mean, this is a very, very bizarre stream of events. And the fact that... So if ASC really was the recruiter of barge-in dancers, he may have overlapped with some seedy individuals and criminal activity. So apparently ASC got a new email February 9th, 2004, and a new phone number February 10th, 2004. Yeah, I don't know. See, we would have to know how many other people living in the immediate area decided to get a new email and phone number right after the disappearance. I don't know. That's a little weird, too. Anyone have any questions about any of this stuff? Pinto Sack, the motorcycle guy, yes. From what we all went over Jessica C in the previous episodes, I don't know. I think a brain fingerprint, I've said this many times, a brain fingerprint scan, I believe, would give all the necessary information to solve this case. Your brain fingerprint scan Billy Roush, Aaron Larkin, all these people, Kate Markopoulos, all the people still alive involved in this case, everybody in the immediate area, everybody affiliated with the barge in and law enforcement, I think you'll have it. I think you will have your answer in that situation. Pinto Sack asks, can you elaborate about the brain fingerprint scan? Does law enforcement ever use it? Well, what do you mean by legal? It's legal to do it. It has been admitted in court on at least one occasion, but I don't know if people tried to get it admitted afterwards because it wasn't easy. But the CIA uses it all the time. Government agencies use it all the time. I don't know if I don't think local departments use it. I don't know how cheap it is. I don't think it's as cheap as a poly. But this is what Stephen Avery took in making a murder, and there was no recognition of any allegation of the state's case. So if he killed Teresa Hallback, if she's dead, the way he did it was absolutely nothing like anything the state has said. But yeah, if it's voluntary, it is legal. It's not some kind of illegal device. There's also either $100,000 or $150,000 reward if you can beat it. If you can lie without it detecting, and nobody has been able to beat it. So I don't even know why polys are still used. Everybody should be using brain fingerprint scan technology because it bypasses the human desire to either lie or tell the truth. It's completely irrelevant. It just measures whether the brain waves recognize information presented. So it doesn't matter whether somebody's trying to lie or not. The most sociopathic, psychopathic serial killer will not beat the machine because the brain whatever information is presented, the brain will recognize it. It's kind of like if you see a person and if you recognize the person, you've seen them before, you can say you haven't seen them or you can say that you have seen them, but that's irrelevant because the brainwave activity will reveal that the face is familiar. Adam says, it is interesting how ASC, possibly oh my coincidence, was shut down so quickly on the old topics forums for being a raving lunatic. Makes you wonder who was really posting on those boards. Yes. Another point, though, is the DC circle shuts everything down, too. Is there a connection between ASC and the DC circle? The only connection I can think of just right offhand right now is if there was an intermediary. If there's upper agency involvement, let's say Maura was a CI, there could be an intermediary that wants both fronts shut down. Or an intermediary who facilitated the shutting down of any questioning of the DC circle, Bill Rausch, Aaron Larkin, whatever. Or that's all being used as a distraction, and Aaron Larkin's chosen moniker, Guerrilla Ontologist, is true to its purpose. Just to sow discord and confusion. So I'm going to go over a question posted on the Mindshock sub. I don't know if this user is in the chat right now. Barbie PI. Barbie PI. Are you in the live chat right now? Bueller. Barbie PI. Barbie PI. Barbie PI. I guess she's not here, but she posted this. I have a question for the live about Maura. I have always wondered if she staged her disappearance after finding out that her sister Julie would be deployed to Iraq. I think because they were so close, she was willing to sacrifice her life to disappear, so that Julie could take leave and find a replacement to go in her spot. Julie herself said when she signed the contract at West Point, she never thought she would have to go overseas, but when the war in Iraq broke out, I think this is even more interesting after listening to Julie's new podcast, especially since the whole my sister that no one can figure out. She got word about this from her boyfriend Bill. He found out from his higher ups and told Maura before Julie even found out. What do y'all think about this scenario being possible? Y'all are my faves. Okay. There's also a heart, and a blown kiss. Okay. Very interesting comment, Barbie PI. So, yeah, that is interesting. If some information was revealed to Maura about her sister without the sister's knowledge, then any of the sisters would not know what that was referring to, even if that really did happen. So, okay, let's ruminate on that for a minute while I double check the health of the stream just to keep everything moving smoothly. I'll be right back in less than a minute. The other curious thing, too, is the whole SA investigation at West Point that broke that Thursday night as well. I mean, the coincidence stack here is just, I mean, it's absolutely incredible. Pinto Sack says, side note, it seems like the Moore family has some issues, drugs, alcohol. Moore seem to really like the booze. Not sure if it applies to anything in the case, but yeah. I don't know if I would say Maura seemed to like the booze more than any other college student in particular. I mean, it's also Zoomass, so Maura might have actually been a below average drinker for Zoomass, considering it's Zoomass. So yeah, I don't know if they blew all of these issues out of proportion intentionally by people looking to smear Maura for whatever reason. Pinto Sack says, you missed a couple things. What did I miss? Oh, you're talking to CB. Welcome, CB. Robert Little says, Maura was murdered by CM. You talking about Claude Moulton? That is a theory we explored as well. Lord Zed says, wine in a Coke can, you got it bad. Keep in mind it's Zoomass. Keep in mind it's Zoomass. Were there ever reports of Maura literally getting blackout drunk and passing out like so many other students at Zoomass? Wine in a Coke can or not, that doesn't necessarily mean she's above average for Zoomass. Megan Elder says, what a small freaking world. What are you referring to? Shifty Eyes Shady says, and probably another kind of Coke. What do you mean by probably? I think it's very possible there may have been a smear campaign against Maura, particularly with the bulimia and all of that. I don't know if any of that's true. Again, if there was some kind of jealousy situation, for example, with the 2-digit credit card charge that resulted in this huge sting operation, who knows how much that cost, that was also supposedly ready to go, as if it was some kind of CI staging. But anyway, if somebody didn't like Maura and they told her it was a pass around credit card when it wasn't, or it really was, but the owner of the card changed her mind when it came to Maura, that would explain that situation, and then everybody kind of just points the finger at her and says she's the bad person when she could have been doing something she thought was perfectly fine. Same thing at West, again, with the West Point situation and the shoplifting. I still can't help but think that if someone had it out for her, they could have easily slipped something into her purse to stage the shoplifting situation. Now, again, I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm saying in other cases that it's actually a common prank. I mean, I don't know how common now, but back in the day, it was semi-common. I mean, kids did that as jokes. I mean, obviously, it's very mean-spirited because there could actually be charges coming from that. But kids are dumb. High school kids, college kids, they do illegal stuff all the time for pranks. All right, so where does everybody want to go next? I have a couple things. Okay, wow. Do you guys want to go down the swingers theory? I don't believe I ever unleashed this one yet. Oh, Pinto Sack wants to talk Billy. I've spent so many countless hours talking about Bill Roush. I don't particularly want to talk about Bill Roush. Do you guys want to go over a theory that I've never gone over before? The swingers theory? I don't know. Adam might be familiar with this. So I don't think the full names have ever been stated, so I'm not gonna state them. But this one's pretty tough. So this was posted in the More Murray sub by user since deleted. Some guy named Stefan C, aka Stefano. So early in the case, several different people said that Maura was seeing a guy named Stefano around the time she disappeared. There is a rumor that he was also at the Saturday party. Now, sometimes he was mentioned as Stephanos with a PH, sometimes as Stefano with an F. So I guess people maybe heard the name and never saw it written. There were a few arguments about it in the old topics forums. I believe Renner had mentioned something about the name as well. It seems someone leaked the info early on or found out about it. But that is about as far as it got, at least for those outside of law enforcement. What's interesting is that there is another individual related to Sarah Alfieri, and one of his old emails has Stefano in the handle, even though his name is not Stefano, but the email is Stefano. Ned Stefano, and apparently nobody can track that name anywhere. When trying to look into the email, background checks usually shows that it belongs to this relative of Sarah Alfieri. Usually with background checks, I have noticed that this could imply the email was shared with this family member at the same address at some point. It is clear as day, though, that this email is linked to this guy related to Sarah. It is actually showing him owning the email address, but it seems more likely he roomed with someone who had this email and they shared the same address. After seeing this, I think it is possible that there was a Stefano who roomed with this relative of Sarah. Is it possible both of these guys were at the Saturday night party, visiting from out of town maybe? So far, there seems to be absolutely no info on anyone named Ned Stefano. Apparently, so I don't know if this is that Stefano or that Greek guy, because this guy's name is not Stefano. So Adam says, I remember researching this. The Ned Stefano thing never got anywhere because we couldn't find any info other than the email. Do you recall how many different individuals mentioned that Maura was dating a Stefano? Or does anyone know if Sarah's cousin went by that nickname even though that's not his name? Or Sarah's cousin's roommate? Did he go by that nickname even though that wasn't his name? How many different people said that Maura was seeing a guy named Stefano? Adam says, it was long ago and I don't remember ever finding a face on social media or anything matching the name. I remember a few people on forums, 2 to 3, mentioning the name Stefano or Stefanos. The old topics post mentioned it first. This kind of reminds me, wasn't there also some kind of Stefano's restaurant, possibly in Boston, possibly connected to the guy who said he had a photo of Morris Saturn there, who sent the tip to Renner and that all disappeared? Was there some kind of Stefanos connected with that? Or actually, wasn't it or was it a Stefano who owned a restaurant there with possible mob ties? I mean, this case is so deep. I mean, we've been going over this for years. I forgot some of those details as well. So here's a post by user since deleted that I found. I'm going to share it. I'm going to share it on the screen for people who think I'm making this up. I just have to block out a name here. Give me a second. Almost done here. Okay, so this is going to be interesting. We are going into a never before examined theory, the swingers theory. So I don't know who this user is. Stefan is an older man. His and her name came up several times for possible human trafficking and other things. There was nothing regular about him. He and his wife were swingers. His wife, Tracy, spent a large portion of her time in Vegas. They were friends with the two porn producers that stayed at the Nootka Inn February 9th. Again, what a coincidence that these guys are coming into town February 9th. Apparently, these guys are the Yu brothers. Was she potentially selling porn movies to her clientele? On February 9th, Tracy was working in Londonderry, New Hampshire. Wow. I mean, that's just another one for the coincidence stack. Out of all the places she could have been working, she's working in Londonderry? That is where Maura's cell phone pinged off of a tower. CS never revealed the source of that ping. Okay, so who's mind shocked right now? So first of all, I've gone over these so-called porn producers, the Nootka Inn, and wasn't, again, I'm getting a little foggy here. We might have to rely on Adam in the chat here. Wasn't Officer Pepper supposedly at the Nootka as well? Was he there that night, February 9th? When these two porn producers just roll into town the same night there's DEA activity, U.S. Marshal activity, and Maura's Saturn rolls into town. Also, on that particular night, Tracy was working in Londonderry. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, people. If this was written into a movie, it would get rejected because no one would believe this level of coincidence. I wonder if this is the same Stefan that is connected to that restaurant in Boston by the guy who claimed he photographed Maura's car there the previous Saturday, I believe he said it was. This is actually kind of crazy because I don't think it was the Saturday. I don't think it was the 7th. I think it was the week before the Saturday the week before. So was Maura visiting Stefan or Stefanos, who just so happened to be friends with these porn producers in Nootka, in the New Haverhill area, where her car ended up. Do you guys want to go over that whole situation that got swept under the rug with the vehicle? Hold on a second. We're not done with the swingers here, though. So I'm not going to post the next screenshot here because it's got a lot of names. But this user since deleted said, I come back with the same name, Stefan, who died in a motorcycle accident. His wife, Tracy, lives in Londonderry. And wasn't Jessica C in the Londonderry area as well? Or am I getting foggy now? Adam, where was Jessica C? Or was it the friend of Jessica C, who supposedly Maura might have been staying with in that off-campus house? I thought I read something about Officer Pepper at the Nootka as well. Wait, hold on a second. Wait, hold on a second. Is Jessica related to Stefan and Tracy? Is it Tracy C? Are they relatives? This would be absolutely insane. Are they related, Adam? I mean, this is, I mean, how many bridges too far are we already out here with the coincidences? South to West says, wasn't Sergeant Pepper's time unaccounted for that evening? Some of it was not. but they have him at certain places. Yes, he was unaccounted for a certain period of time, but they also did have him accounted for in certain pieces. Adam says they are not relatives. So, but do they know each other? That would be the next question. Hmm. How do you know they're not relatives, though? Even if they don't have the same last name? But anyway, Stefan lived in Benton and also Woodsville. Stefan and his wife were swingers. She used to ship Stefan some kind of drugs from Vegas. People at the local post office knew about it. Amazing, none of this ever came to light. I would say that Stefan and his wife were friends with many of the unsavory locals. All right, once we get through this, I'll go back to the photograph of the car tip that of Maura Saturn the previous weekend in Boston at a restaurant that possibly also involved some kind of Stefan derivative, possibly. I don't know. There's so much to keep track of in this case. It's getting pretty crazy. I mean, it's been getting pretty crazy. Adam asked, "What was the initial question you had about Jessica C?" Her, who was the individual? It wasn't Jessica C. Was it Jessica C's friend that Maura was staying with? I totally forgot now. This was on one of the big podcasts I did recently on Jessica C. There was some kind of connection in the off campus because if Maura wasn't staying at her dorm, who was she staying with? It was the other track. It was the former track teammate, one of the last people she spoke on the phone with. Was there a connection to Jessica C with that individual? I thought someone had posted that there was some kind of connection with Jessica C and either Maura's former track teammate or somebody in that circle. Marissa C. Is everybody's last name C now? And none of these people are related. Yes, the owner of the Springfield number. Was there a connection to Jessica C between Marissa and Jessica? I believe someone on a forum made some connections, but I don't remember. Okay, so let's re-examine the Saturn sighting in Boston. Actually, give me one more second. I don't want the stream to get shut down because we might be getting onto something here. Just give me another second. I got to double check a few things. All right, we should still be good to go. Okay. So let me bring up what I do have on this. Hmm. Let me make sure I got all this correct here. Did we ever go over the Masonic temple connections with Concrete Guy? Oh man, I don't know. I don't think we went over those. Man, I think I did too much research regarding this case. Is it possible to do too much research? I'm actually having trouble finding the whole boss. Okay, actually, hold on a second. I think I can get it. Actually, I have another post I have to go over as well, which has some mind-shocking info. But one thing at a time. Just try to stay focused here. The Boston sighting. Okay, so Bonquist Ghost actually summarized this quite well, so I will go over his summary here. Adam says, it's funny that Concrete Guy put his photos back of him and Lavoie's nephew having drinks together. They were removed for a while, so I'm guessing he reads the Reddit threads. Someone mentioned that he had removed all those photos. So he just put them back just for giggles. Okay, so we're gonna go down Mindshock. We're gonna get really deep into Mindshock land regarding Boston. This is gonna get pretty crazy because I don't think anybody's ever done a true deep dive into Boston. So Bonquist goes summarize this. Everything is just a coincidence, right? I am again referencing Renner's blog about the Saturn being photographed by an unknown journalist when they noticed the Saturn and a truck on the pier of the famed Pier 4 restaurant, which has been demolished. We recently found out from Maggie's notes from Oxygen that Maura was seeing a guy from Boston, at least on the eve of the party, maybe more than that. Anyways, then there are also the references Renner made to unknown prominent businessmen that had salacious stories about Maura's activities. Then I recently was checking on the weirdness surrounding Billy Roush, West Point Army buddy Sam slash Bob, who was on Tim and Lance's West Point episode and appeared on Oxygen both times as Bill's stand-in, all the while claiming he never knew Maura went missing in 2004 until 2015. I forgot all about that, Sam Bob. Yeah, that was pretty crazy with Sam Bob. Who remembers Sam Bob, who was Bill's stand-in, one of Bill's best buddies, who didn't know that Bill's girlfriend went missing for over 10 years? I mean, wow. I mean, even if Billy himself never said it, I mean, just the fact, how can you be somebody's best friend and not know that, just through shared acquaintances and I don't know, news reports? Sam Bob most recently worked for Boston Harbor Cruises. This is on his LinkedIn. He appears to have experience in big money investments and accounts. I'll have to listen more to know if he knew Julie as well, but I assume so, since his time at West Point with Billy Roush was the same time as Julie. So let's look at this map here on how close. Now, I don't know if Sam Bob, who knows if Sam Bob was working that exact day. But let's look at the map here. So supposedly the Saturn was photographed at Pier 4 here. And so Boston Harbor City Cruises, where supposedly Sam Bob worked at, is right next to it. That's kind of curious. That's kind of curious. Anybody else find this kind of curious? Huh. Yeah, I mean that's right by there. Okay. The restaurant was the highest grossing one in the US. What? And was owned by an Albanian immigrant, Mr. Athanas. And we actually went over that. So let's not forget the Albanian Patrit Vasi, and let's not forget all of the Iranians, including the ones more called to buy the, or supposedly called to purchase a vehicle from that weekend. Not to mention Patrit Vasi's, the Albanian Patrit Vasi's Iranian landlord. I mean, this is all in connection with. Let me get the enactment. Something. Is it, It was the auto shop, the salvage and used car sales. This was. See if I still have the UMass map. Oh wow, I just found the other Stefan connection. Wow. 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 The Phillips Street address. So Maura Murray had this affair with Iranian Hussein Baghdadi. Maura was seen visiting 2729 Phillips Street in 2003, a popular party destination. And who knows whether she also visited the that weekend. An expert auto body specialist by the last name of Stefan owns 2729 Phillips Street. Expert auto body specialist. Now, Patrice Vassi's apartment building or rental house is owned by another Iranian. Now, the same Iranian who owns Patrice Vassi's rental house is the owner of Reliance Auto, whom Maura Murray or her cell phone called that weekend to buy a vehicle. Now, CJ Enterprises is who towed the Corolla from the Hadley accident. So, is that enough to make everybody's head spin? So, the Reliance Autos owner that property was previously owned by CJ Enterprises, who towed the Corolla. So they would have known Maura's movements quite well. So if this all is connected, if this really is connected to the Patrice Vassi hit and run, the amount of Albanians and Iranians that all know each other and own each other's buildings that are directly connected to either places Maura called looking for a car or the tow, and the tow truck driver gave Maura the ride to the hotel. So, I mean, this is kind of creepy, but if there is a conspiracy, they would have had eyes and ears on her throughout all of this. Now, another Albanian happens to own Anthony's Pier. Also, regarding the other Stefan, the auto body specialist, owns that party house that Maura may or may not have been staying at if she wasn't staying at her dorm. This auto body specialist may have also seen both the Hadley or both the Corolla and the Saturn. And what would that mean? And let's also not forget the gun recovered from Patrice Vassi's dorm room. Why are cops even searching the dorm of a hit and run coma victim? Do they have the warrant for that? To go through the private stuff of a kid who got hit, who was in a coma? That never really made sense either. Pinto Sack can't take any more coincidences. I mean, this is a world record coincidence case here. The amount of coincidences here are just absolutely stratospheric. But let's try to focus here. So back to back to Bonquist Ghost here. So Mr. Athanas, supposedly this is the highest grossing restaurant in the US, or the highest grossing. I mean, this is weird. So it also had major ties to Whitey Bulger. Wait, who said they couldn't handle any more coincidences? So Whitey Bulger's brother was the chancellor of UMass, or the president of UMass. And supposedly, this restaurant that the Saturn was photographed at the weekend prior to the disappearance is an Albanian who has connections to Whitey Bulger. Oh man. Oh man. There's only so much of this we can handle. So anyway, continuing Bonkos Go's post here, it also had major ties to the Whitey Bulger activity back in the day. So there's great silence on the story. Well, let's also not forget that even Ghislaine Maxwell had property in New Hampshire as well. And if there's human trafficking in the minutes of the Haverhill report, I mean, was Ghislaine Maxwell connected to human trafficking activity in Haverhill, regardless of whether it had to do with Maura Murray or not? And if Ghislaine Maxwell was connected, who knows how far or like where Epstein would have been in all that. So there's great silence on the story about the Saturn being at the pier with only one other vehicle that weekend. Some say it was a troll story without any evidence coming forward, but maybe so, but it was info that came out quite a while ago. And in light of recent events seems noteworthy. One can see here how close the two companies were with the Saturn possibly in Boston that weekend. So not only all of that, but Sam Bob, Bill Rausch's best buddy and stand-in on these shows, was working just around the corner from where Maura's Saturn was spotted the weekend before the disappearance, allegedly, if this is true, if it was really spotted there. Wow. I mean, is it possible to even work more coincidences into this if we tried? Yeah, we need Maxwell to digest this for us. Is it possible to add more coincidence? Like, is it possible? If the Saturn was moved only Monday after not being used for weeks, it would be ice snow covered, making it a bitch to get out, especially if UMass plowed it from the storm on Friday. There was never any corroboration the Saturn or Maura was seen on camera that weekend or Monday, because her father dropping her off Sunday at noonish at her dorm. Is any of that related? Maybe the hundreds of coincidences are just coincidences. We might be in the thousands now. And then, of course, we do have to add, is it possible Bill Rausch actually was in the UMass or even Boston area that previous weekend? And because he mentioned he had to go back in that one interview where we went over all this information of him possibly having to go back. Why would he say go back why would he say that if he wasn't just there? I mean, I don't know. Again, more questions than answers. So what's the story with Sam Bob? So another curiosity here. Apparently, Maggie Freeling put out information regarding who Maura was with at the party, and it was the one Maura was with was from Boston. So Bonquist Ghost summarized this again as well. Much drama going around. I wanted to pick out this sentence here. Maggie is 100% verifying that Maura was hanging out with a guy from Boston. Allegedly, law enforcement looked into all of these people in the story. Yet, one interesting situation that derives from all this now is that Renner had received info from a reporter that they had a phone dated from the weekend before Maura disappeared. It was the Saturn that was claimed to have been parked at Pier 4 in Boston with Fred Murray's plate. So this was Saturday or Sunday, the 7th or 8th. There was no reason for this info to be made up or a troll way back then, especially now knowing this info about a guy hanging with Maura who was from Boston. It goes back to my claim that Maura and the Saturn may have been two separate events with no known conflation between them. Someone was trying to hide or dispose of the Saturn in New Hampshire, and things got expletive up at the corner, having witnesses making odd statements of that night. Law enforcement's silence on all of this makes one wonder who this was or how they are covered for here as well, as law enforcement allegedly spoke with and cleared them. So what kind of so is this a prominent businessman that Maura was seeing? Okay. Here's another theory. Is it possible that Sam Bob saw Maura with this prominent businessman, and that let one and that just put into effect a certain series of events? I'm gonna go over one more post here by user since deleted. This was posted 2 years ago. Hey friends, can anyone help answer some of these questions involving early local rumors? I'm hoping these will spark some discussion. The last question is not really involving a local rumor, but something I do not remember reading about. 1. What is the apparent shrine to Maura that Concrete Guy had on his MySpace page but deleted? Was anyone around MySpace early on to see this? I've heard that this shrine existed from two separate individuals, but have yet to see any evidence. 2. Who was Red? In an early topics post, the user Oh My posted about Claude Moulton and a few other people he was associated with, including a person named Red, who was said to be specifically responsible for the murder of Maura and putting her body in a wood chipper. Claude Moulton and everyone else mentioned in that post have been identified except this person. Oh My also mentioned that some of these people had connections with Jetstar Auto. And also, if this other Stefano guy, this older guy who was buddy with the pornographers at the Nootka Inn, and Oh My is also supposedly in charge of getting dancers at the Barge Inn, so who knows how much overlap there is between those people. So is the swingers angle really in play here? Because if all these people know each other. 3. Did Maura ever visit the Barge Inn? My memory isn't as good with this one, so correct me if I'm not completely accurate. Apparently there was a basement area that was like a strip club where a bunch of older guys would mess around with younger women. It was mentioned in topics as well. Claude Moulton and some of these guys would go there. One of them even seems to have been family with the guy who owned the place. Someone may have to fact check this rumor, but I believe on one of the Mindshock episodes, there was a rumor that Jeff Williams had been going there with Claude Moulton. I don't remember that rumor that Jeff Williams was with Claude, but there was a rumor that Jeff Williams did frequent there, yes, and Claude Moulton did. I don't remember specifically that they were there together and they were friends, but who knows? I mean, there have been so many episodes. 4. Who is the close friend that Maura knew in New Hampshire? Has this person ever been identified? 5. This one really, well, I'm assuming, because this was from years ago, this might have been the track teammate. This one really intrigued me. In an older article, it says there was a voicemail left by a friend of Maura's being investigated. Since there was never a phone found, they must have meant her dorm room, right? Who is this friend? I copied and pasted some of this article and the link from Tapatalk. Wait, what? I don't remember this. We might have a new piece of info here on Mindshock. So this is Associated Press, Kate McCann, Saturday, February 21, 2004. Father of missing woman frustrated with the search. Vermont State Police, Burlington Police. So Burlington Police and other local agencies were combing area motels on Saturday after a check of Maura's computer found out she had looked up directions to Burlington the day she disappeared. So, wait a second. The dancers at the Barge Inn were being sourced from Burlington. And apparently, Burlington also has some kind of drug crime activity that's kind of big for the area. Still nothing. South Burlington Police Sergeant James Snyder said of the search on Saturday, "We've already given out flyers and we've checked the hotels. All the hotels are full this weekend because we have Mardi Gras. All of the hotels are aware of it. Police and family members are also trying to gauge the significance of a phone call that reduced Murray to tears while working her campus job at UMass Amherst February 5th. She was disturbed by the call. Her supervisor had to take her home." Police are also investigating a message on Maura's phone from a friend she talked to the day before she disappeared. A message from a friend? Huh. I don't recall this. Who in the chat remembers there being a message from a friend? Because, yeah, officially they never recovered her phone. Police are investigating a message on Maura's phone. So, yeah, I don't recall the message. Adam, are you still here? What is this message on her phone from this article, February 21st, 2004, by Kat McCann? Father of missing woman frustrated with search. They mention a message on Maura's phone from a friend the day before. So was this on the dorm line? So the conversation here was that if law enforcement had her password and all her information, they may have accessed her voicemail on her cell phone as well. A couple more rumors here that were posted in the Maura Murray sub here. I'll read them here. There's a rumor that Cecil was involved with Is this Claude Moulton's younger girlfriend, who supposedly was a dead ringer for Maura? Was Cecil involved with her? There are also rumors that Cecil Smith was the head drug dealer in the area. And that also that Claude Moulton had state police ties that allowed him to get away with or were complicit in his dealing drugs. So yeah, I mean, yeah, this is tough. So what does everybody think? I mean, this is pretty much all I got for now. Adam says, trying to dig up something I wanted to send your way. I do remember this, but I have no idea who that message was from. That seems like a critical piece of information. Possibly the last message ever that Maura received. I mean, that seems like that could possibly be important. Just maybe. Yeah, I was just digging up some information that there's possible some familial relation between the Murray family and the G brothers, who are also related to Sky. So when people say that this Claude Moulton's girlfriend was a dead ringer from Maura Murray, is that because Sky was related to Maura? And here's the final mind check of the evening. This is the final theory that I'm gonna go over here. What if somebody actually thought Maura was Sky instead of the other way around? Because the earlier theory was that there's some kind of staging of a vehicle and they used Sky as a stand in because she looked like Maura. I mean, maybe they're related, who knows? What if the opposite happened? What if somebody saw Maura driving somewhere and they thought it was Sky? And these crazy criminals, I don't know, something happened in that situation. And if Claude really does have some kind of law enforcement connections and there's DEA activity in the area and US Marshal activity in the area that night of all nights, and maybe Cecil's caught in the middle of something drug wise, maybe local law enforcement is corrupt, maybe there's something going on in the barge inn. Maybe one of these lowlifes mistook Maura for Sky. So I'm gonna leave it at that for this live Q&A in the Maura Murray series. We'll be back for more. There's always more in this case. Hopefully it'll be solved soon. There does appear to be quite enough information to do so. It's just a matter of putting the correct pieces together and possibly getting the right amount of brain fingerprint scans. If you find the Mindshock podcast interesting and informative, want to help support it, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell for notifications. Like and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. You can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel that way. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.